would you be doing if you were Trump's team, and what would you be doing if you were the prosecution?
Well, first of all, with Trump team, I would want to have the trial every minute of it. Number two, I would make a motion, and there is a motion that can be made under New York law, dismissing Trump from being at the trial every day. It's his right. It's not the government's right. And he should not have to be at the trial and miss campaigning. So those are the first two things I would do. Then in terms of picking jurors, I wouldn't ask them whether they could give a fair trial. Of course, the ones who want to be on the jury will say, the ones that don't will say no. It's an absurd, ridiculous question designed to elicit perjury. I would try to find out, what they think. Have they ever spoken about Trump? What have they said about Trump? What have they told other people about Trump? What have they heard about Trump? I would try to get the facts and then make our own judgment about whether or not they could be fair. They shouldn't be making their own judgment about whether they can be fair, because they're all going to say they can if they want to be on the jury.
And, you mentioned not having to be there. Trump was very upset he's going to miss Barron's graduation as things stand. Judge next week will rule on this potential gag order violation. They're saying he spoke about Cohen in social media, and that violates a gag order. They're going pretty hard there. Trump also, by the way, will miss SCOTUS oral arguments if he has to be in this courtroom, Professor, and those are next week, too. Do you think that's a big deal, that he's being prohibited from going to another potentially very important day in his legal fight?
Look, this judge is just being extra tough on him. I've never heard of a judge who didn't allow a defendant to go to a son's graduation. Of course, he should be allowed to. He should be allowed to leave the courtroom anytime he wants. This is a defendant's right. The statute says, and the statute is unconstitutional insofar as it prevents a presidential candidate from campaigning. But the statute itself says if the state doesn't object, the judge can allow a defendant to leave the courtroom and waive his right to be there. No reason why the prosecution should object to that, except if they want to engage in election interference. And I don't know whether his lawyers have made that motion, but they surely should.
And perhaps they will. Hearing your suggestion here, it is a very important one. Associated Press had a poll released just today. Only 1 in 3 Americans think Trump acted illegally in this particular case. And, of course, if you're watching some liberal big media, you're going to hear the left spin it otherwise, that he's just the worst person, obviously, ever. There's this comment that Katie Couric, one time, big journalist on BC, now hosts a podcast or doing whatever here, but she made a comment about who the Trump voters are, the anti-establishment. And this is how she characterized them to Bill Maher. Let's listen.
The socioeconomic disparities are a lot, and class resentment is a lot, and anti-intellectualism and elitism is what is driving many of these anti-establishment, which are Trump voters, or anti-establishment voters. So I think that is a huge problem that we have to address.
Between the lines, what I'm hearing there is, if you think the legal system is weaponized, that you're low class, you're a Trump voter, you're MAGA, and she wasn't sitting in an ivory tower, but she was sitting in a big cozy chair there, pontificating. What do you make of those statements?
The same kind of statement that actually cost Hillary Clinton the election in 2016, when she talked about the deplorables. You can't attack people who aren't voting for you in that way. I know some of the most brilliant intellectuals who are voting for Donald Trump, and I know some of the stupidest people in the world who are voting for Biden. So you can't generalize like that at all. Yes, it turns out that the Republicans are doing better in getting blue-collar workers, and that's to their credit. And the Democrats, in many places, have become the party of the elite and the hard left. And so that's a sad reality, too. But to try to generalize about who the voters are, Trump did the same thing. He called me stupid without mentioning my name. He said any Jew who votes for Biden is, I forget the word he used, but I don't know. I may vote for Biden. I haven't made up my mind. I don't think of myself as stupid. So both parties, everybody should stay away from this kind of name calling.